But you really got to have trustworthy, reliable data to do personalization. Because the worst thing you could do is have personalization and it's like, you know, hi, Samantha. So and so, like, it's like, I'm not Samantha, I'm Brittany. And
Yeah.
it's like, just is like a strike on that
Yeah.
brand.
Welcome to Modern Marketing Messages, the leading podcast discussing the latest and greatest in both online and offline marketing tactics, strategies, and trends. I'm your host, Taylor Karg, marketing content writer at AmericanEagle.com. We are back with another one-on-one interview with a marketing expert. Joining us today is Brittany Moreland, Digital Marketing Strategist and Team Lead at AmericanEagle.com. We're going to dig into her years of experience in digital marketing, her responsibilities, processes, and so much more. Welcome, Brittany. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're recording in the Chicagoland area, and Brittany is joining us all the way from Virginia.
Yep, Northern Virginia.
Represent. So jumping right in, can you tell us a little bit about, your journey to AmericanEagle.com? This is the first time I know we have a large company here. So this is the first time I'm meeting you and getting to know you. So I'd love to hear all about your experience, getting started at AmericanEagle.com.
Yeah, so I actually joined AmericanEagle.com over a year ago, so last April. So 16 years in the making. I graduated from college in a small town out here in Virginia. So right after college, I was fortunate enough to start at a small traditional direct response agency in Richmond. And then my husband's job pulled us up to Northern Virginia, where the last 8 years I was at a small e commerce agency up in Northern Virginia. And I really had the itch to like go in and work for a larger agency. So I was fortunate enough, one of my old coworkers had been working at AmericanEagle.com for a couple of months. We connected and she referred me, and the rest is history.
Oh,
So
wow.
16 years
Yeah.
to find. Yep.
It's always nice to know, especially like if you had an old coworker work here and kind of give you, the inside information
Yep.
before you got started. So, I'm
Yep.
glad you're here.
I did drill her
Yeah.
very much so. Yes, I'm happy to be here. It's been a breath of fresh air for sure.
Awesome. So let's take it all the way back. What drew you to the field of digital marketing initially? You said 16 years in the making. So let's go all the way back.
Yep. So all the way back. So I graduated college, what, 2008? I'm going to age myself there, but I was drawn to marketing. So back in, after college, like digital marketing was not really a thing yet.
Yeah.
So traditional marketing, print marketing, and even graphic design is actually what pulled me to marketing originally. So like being able to use like some level of creativity and innovation is what drew me to kind of the traditional marketing. But then you started to see some of these agencies and companies like diving into digital. So whether it's starting social or dabbling into email, I saw that as like the way of the future and where things were going with marketing. And I wanted to be a part of it. So I think there's a level of like what is next that intrigued me. And kind of why and how I got into digital marketing initially. So started with like print and traditional and then moved my way on into digital.
Yeah, that makes sense. And did you study marketing in college as well?
Yep. So I actually went to college for nursing school, which is like
Okay. Yeah.
two totally end of the
Yeah.
spectrum type of professions. But when I went to college, I went to play volleyball and I went and I wanted to be a nurse. And so that was my plan. I was sticking to it. And then my freshman year, they actually pulled the plug on the nursing program because of funds. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? My college roommate had started some business classes and then she just got into the business school and she would like run presentations off me or just ideas in general and it really intrigued me and so I applied for the business school. I graduated with a BS in business administration and a concentration in marketing. And so after, my sophomore year, really sophomore, junior, senior year, it was finance classes and ecom classes and sales classes and marketing classes. So it worked out in the end.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, you know, I think what's great about digital marketing too is like there's so many different things where nursing is nursing. It can go into different specialties, but I think being able to be like creative too is something that I really, really enjoy as well.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Coming from, a fellow creative, and I have a lot of nursing friends, I think, we definitely have more opportunities to,
Yep.
flex our creative arm there than you would
Yep.
in nursing.
Yep. Yep.
So you talked a little bit about this, in your previous answer, how digital marketing really wasn't even a thing, back when you started. But how else have you seen, the industry change since you've started your career?
I think the data has changed a lot and the ability to gather more data and more insights and display that on a dashboard and using that data to really measure success is something like back in the day you had maybe Excel with like certain points and data points that you could review, but now that we have Looker Studio and Power My Analytics, like there's so many tools out there now that weren't out there back in the day. And so those are kind of the biggest things. Like these tools have really helped me, and I know a lot of people like do our job better, which is one of the biggest changes for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. So let's get into your role at AmericanEagle.com. Can you describe your day-to-day responsibilities as a digital marketing strategist and even, talk about like leading a team and all that?
Yeah. So the thing I love most is that it's something different every day. I am working with different clients every day, not only focused on like my book of accounts and my clients, but the other strategists that I manage. It's being able to pop into one of their internal calls or client calls and support them and guide them or be a sounding board for them. So whether, it's being on a status call or presenting a quarterly business review or helping out one of the other strategists on my team, reviewing presentations and making sure that we're really adding value is kind of my day to day. Checking in with them as well as important because I'm remote and most of my team is remote. So, you can't just pop over to their office or their cube. So I think it's really important in my day to day to constantly check in on them. Like, how are things? How was that presentation? What can I help you with? Or how did that convo go? I think is really important in my role. And just not making it so like work focused or like transactional, but it's like, how was your trip to Arizona? Or how's your wife's new job? And just making sure daily that they know that like they're valued. I'm there for them. If you need a sounding board, I'm here to chat, Teams me or what have you. So
Yeah.
kind of, a long-winded answer of my day to day, but it's definitely different every day.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I love what you said, and it feels like you'd be, a great manager to work under.
I know. I love that's the thing. Like, going back to like nursing, like I love to help people and I
Yeah.
like to make people's jobs easier. So what I can do to help, um, you know, count me in.
What about with your clients? What kind of role do you take with the clients specific to you?
So for my clients specifically, it's working with our channel specialists. So whether that's SEO or paid search or paid social, it's making sure that what we're recommending on a daily, monthly, quarterly, schedule is that those are all tied back to their goals. And if we're recommending something from an SEO standpoint, like why are you recommending it? Does it make sense? Will it provide the best value? It's also just giving them daily status updates on where things are. Where is this deliverable and what's an ETA on that? So that's some of the day to day responsibilities with my clients or reviewing something if they want a second set of eyes and how can we enhance this or optimize that as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, at the end of the day, the clients are paying us, for all of these services. So I think it's great that, you're able to check in and you make that a part of your daily
Yeah.
responsibilities.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges you face, in your role working with, an array? I'm sure you have an array of clients in different industries and stuff like that. So what kind of challenges do you see on a daily basis?
So I think some of the challenges is working at an agency. We're fortunate enough to work with a bunch of different types of clients, industries. So it's being able to context switch. You're working with, a large book of accounts, and one account, you know them like the back of your hand, you have a great rapport, but then there's other accounts where you feel like you have to prove yourself and you haven't built that relationship. I also think, again, like being remote, a lot of our clients or a lot of my clients are local to Illinois and the Midwest. I can't just drive up there and do a quarterly business review or go get a drink or go get coffee. So I think that's a challenge also. But I think it also makes it exciting that you get to work on these different accounts and these different types of accounts and these different industries, which is fun.
Would you say you use, your experience as like a team lead and just everything you explained before about checking in as a way to alleviate the challenge of maybe not being, in the same region or the same area as these clients?
Yeah, for sure. I think with clients, you've got to build a rapport with them or try to build a rapport with them so they trust you. And that's one of the things about like working with an agency is, you know, we are an extension of their marketing department. Like we are partners. I don't work for you. You don't work for me. Like it really is a partnership, which is hard to do remote, but it's just like, sending them memes or sending them a happy birthday or just checking in and having just a organic conversation, that maybe isn't about business, I think goes a long way with clients too. And there's some clients that are like strictly business focused and that's it. And so I think when you can, it's really important to try to build really good relationships with clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same way too. So let's talk about the skills and strategies that you think are essential for someone in a role such as yours.
So I think in my position, if you look at like the digital strategist side of my position, is that you've really got to be a risk taker and think outside the box. So, and looking at like the bigger picture of things, I think understanding long-term goals are just as important as short-term goals. I feel like we get bogged down by like, okay, what's going to give us the immediate satisfaction or the immediate result right now for clients, which is important, but also you've got to look long-term too. And understanding that it may take risks to get there. And that's the great thing about digital marketing is that you can test, you can measure, you can see what's working and what's not working and kind of tweak and iterate where you need to. Um, I also think from a management perspective, like you've got to be empathetic. You've got to be a sounding board. You can't be a micromanager. You got to let your team in some aspects like fly. And if they fail, they fail, but it's a learning experience. So that's kind of the I think skills that are important for both a strategist and somebody that's in a management role too.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to what you said about taking risks, do you find that you have a hard time or an easy time convincing clients that, digital marketing these days is about taking risks?
Well, I think too, it also being a risk taker comes with experience too. But with clients and presenting some sort of strategy or initiative, as long as I feel like you have data to back it up and you have data on why they should take this risk and the potential rewards from it, I think is really important. Some clients are very conservative and they're like, nope, we're just going to stick with this. But then you have fun clients that are like, yep, let's do this. Let's test it. Let's do this. Let's put some money into this ad and let's see how it resonates. So I think it comes with experience, but I also think it's based client by client too.
Yeah, and that also comes with experience is kind of knowing which way you can push the boundaries with which clients and who's going to react
Yep.
well and who isn't.
Yep. Yep. 100%.
So, can you walk us through your process for developing a digital marketing strategy for a new client?
So this is what I love. I love kicking off with a new client or onboarding a new client. I think it's laying a great foundation and kind of a good first impression is like number one with developing a strategy for a client and understanding from their aspect and their perspective, like what are their goals? Are they actionable? Are they attainable? And making sure that we're keeping those goals in the forefront of like everything we recommend or everything that we try to put forth. I think figuring out, when you're developing a strategy, asking the client, like, what has worked and what hasn't worked previously? Why didn't it work? Why did it work? And try to learn from that, I think is really important as well. I also think looking at what competitors are doing or don't doing and seeing how, like, what is our competitive advantage? How can we, take the learnings from what they're doing and then, take that and implement it on our side. But all of this, making sure that like we're tying it all back to their goals, I think is really important. And then just laying a foundation and a roadmap and being able to measure that and what, that's why data is important because you can see like what's working, what's not, and you can change and test and tweak along the way. So in goals first, I think auditing current channels is important too. And then figuring out what's worked and what hasn't, and then what competitors are doing are kind of the 4 or 5 steps to start building that strategy.
And
So
obviously each client is different, but is there like a typical time frame from, like signing on a new client, having this kickoff call and then developing the strategy and beginning it? Is there like does it take like a month? Does it take a few months? What's that timeline like?
I think it varies on client and industry. If you look at a client that has reached out to AmericanEagle.com to do SEO and email and paid search, that's 3 different channels where you are trying to figure out what are each of the goals of that channel, auditing those channels, figuring out again like what's working, what's not working. So like if we have 3 channels that we are supporting, it takes a couple weeks, a month to figure out, asking the client, doing some sort of stakeholder meeting with the client. So I think it depends on the client, the channels we are supporting as well. So I know we like to move faster on certain things. We want to start giving, providing results and right away. But there's a level of like homework and research that we have to do that does take time. But in the long run, it definitely benefits us and our strategy.
Yeah, certainly. So we've talked a lot about data and making decisions off data. How do you guys measure the success of a digital marketing campaign? I know each channel is different, but is there,
Yep.
like overarching things we can talk about?
There's tangible things and there's intangible things. I think success of any campaign or any channel is conversions, right? So revenue, form submits or phone calls that are coming in. That's all important to like driving success of a digital marketing campaign. I also think it's like client temperature. Like I think a successful digital marketing campaign results in like, is the client happy? Are they asking us to support them with other channels or doing more work or potentially looking at a website build? Or like, are they renewing their contract? Or are they increasing their retainer hours? So I think there's, an intangible and tangible aspect to success. And in my mind should go hand in hand when you're looking at overall success of a campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly didn't even really think about it that way because I think, a lot of people, ourselves on the marketing team included, get so caught up in the data. Oh, if we see
Yep.
positive numbers, if we see positive increases, that's great. But I think all of those intangible benefits that you just mentioned
Yeah.
are really something to think about too.
I also think like we are so results driven as strategists and in digital marketing, but stepping back and looking at, okay, yes, results drive revenue and they, we need to provide results. But also it's like what else besides that measures success? And it's always stuck with me at, at one of my old bosses. It was like, I was so defeated with one of these campaigns that I had run. It was an email campaign for Black Friday and it tanked. And I was so excited about this. I thought it was going to do well. The whole team was on board. And then I'm sitting there looking at, back in the day, Universal Analytics. I'm like, oh
Hmm.
my gosh, this email has not brought in revenue like it did last year. Like Black Friday is the biggest day of the year for them. We're not doing well. And then at the end of the day, the client was so happy with us thinking outside the box and doing something different that we've historically not done for Black Friday. And then we turned around, we learned from that. And then Cyber Week, we absolutely killed it. And so I think it's like, that's one of the things is like, again, revenue and results are great, but like the client was so appreciative that we did take that risk and we learned from it and then we turned it around and it was record breaking like November for them. So I think making sure that we're not so results driven is really important in digital marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is a great perspective. And a lot of people, I think, could, take some lessons from that. Are there any specific tools that you rely on? I know we talked about like analytics. So obviously, I'm sure like our team, maybe like
Or
Google Analytics 4. Is there anything else that
yep.
you rely on?
I really rely on, well, GA4, yes, although I loathe GA4. I miss UA.
Many people do.
Um, oh my gosh, yes. There's how many times in the day where I Google, like, how do I find this in GA4? That's beside the point.
Yeah.
But I think obviously like Google Search Console, SEMrush are great tools. I also think people. I think it's like cliche to say people are tools, but a lot of the times, like I'm bouncing ideas off of people, in teams or on calls. I think it's one of the things like taking initiative and reaching out and being uncomfortable with like asking for help or what do you think of this or hey, can you review this? I think is important. I think it's a good tool and skill to have to take that initiative and reach out and kind of be vulnerable to somebody like looking at your strategy and like writing a red pen all over it.
Yeah.
But I think it's super valuable to learn somebody else's perspective.
Yeah, totally. And not to, just like to AmericanEagle.com's horn right now, but I'm going to for
You
a
too.
second. I think, what's so great about working here is that there are so many, intelligent and just like nice people that it's great to be able to go to honestly, really anyone in the company with a question or just an extra set of eyes on things. So I can definitely see where you're coming from.
Yeah. And that's one of the things too. Like again, I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I will say that people here at AmericanEagle.com, they are competent, intelligent, they're willing to help, which I don't think you have at a lot of places.
Yeah.
And, asking for help or asking for an opinion, like people really genuinely want to help you here, which I think is very important to overall, not even mental health, but just work environment as a whole and making sure that you're not a one man island and a one man team, that you really have this entire team of strategists and SEO folks and paid search folks and social and email. And everybody is willing to help. And I think, again, competent people who provide immense value
Yeah.
to me and I think our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we always say on the marketing team that everything we do is like a group project back in like high school and college because everyone, is working together on basically
Yep.
everything, no matter what it is.
Yeah. Yep. Five minds are better than one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, switching gears a little bit, let's talk about some common mistakes you see with businesses, and what common mistakes they make in their digital marketing strategies.
So I think some common mistakes is, and I'm going to tie this back again to goals. Like if you don't have like attainable, realistic goals, then like where do you start? Like you have to have a focus and a vision. And if you start out with like unrealistic or unattainable goals, you're setting yourself up for failure. So I think it's important to have realistic goals. Everybody
Yeah.
wants to reach for the
Yeah.
moon, right? But like what is realistic? Because if not, you don't hit those goals. There's a level of again, failure, disappointment that comes with that. I also think not having like a clear direction on where your company or your department wants to go, or you're trying to cut corners to get there, I think is some mistakes that some businesses make. I think the biggest thing for businesses is having like a lack of data and being able to gather data, whether that's on the website, through forms, through email. But if you don't have trustworthy, reliable data, then your digital strategy and digital marketing is going to fall flat. Like you've got to have data for personalization, which personalization we know is the talk of digital marketing right now, that and AI. But really having a lack of data, I think, really hinders businesses.
Yeah. And
They've got to keep up.
And no matter what, you need to look at the data in order to make smart decisions with what you're doing.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just like you can't aim for everything and achieve everything at one time.
Yeah, 100%. And I just, yeah, it blows my mind that there's some companies that, struggle with gathering data or don't see the importance or value in data. And I think, for AmericanEagle.com coming in, and our analytics team are a bunch of rock stars, and utilizing them to now help our clients gather this data, I think is important.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you share an example or, like a case study of a successful campaign you've recently led? We don't need to mention the client by name, but maybe just like by industry and describe a little bit about
Yep.
that.
Yeah. So my one of the accounts that I support with my rock star of a team is a company in the pizza industry.
Okay.
So it's fun. They're a great brand. They're an energetic brand. They're just fun to work with. So we have been focusing. They reached out to AmericanEagle.com for some SEO and content support. So we started with like a pilot program working with some of the stores in their Michigan location in the Midwest. And so they wanted to kind of test AmericanEagle.com. They wanted to test us to see, you know, with our recommendations and executing on those, like what value are we bringing? So we started with Michigan, and we made some on page, off page SEO recommendations. We made some content updates. We made some homepage updates because our main goal, which was really lofty, is they really started wanting to rank in Google's SERP for keywords like pizza, pizza near me, pizza delivery, which
It's quite
these are very
lofty. Yep.
difficult, right? These are very difficult keywords to rank for. They have a high monthly search volume. Their keyword difficulty is at the top.
Yeah.
And you're also competing against these big brands, big chains like Domino's and Papa John's and
Yeah.
Pizza Hut and all of that.
Hmm.
So, we spent a couple of weeks trying to optimize, and we are now ranking, or the highest rank we've been on is the first page of Google's search engine results page. So we went
Wow.
from being on page like 5, 6, 7, which is like 0.0001% of folks click through those pages,
Yeah.
to now being on
Especially
the
for
first
pizza.
page. Yeah, it's huge and
Yeah.
such an awesome win. It's really been fun to like seeing the blood, sweat, and tears and like the fruits of our labor really working. Especially for, these types of keywords. So kudos to, that team, but it's been fun, and it's been fun to like track progress
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. I'm sure it was especially fun too, just because it started off as kind of like a test and them testing our knowledge and our capabilities.
Yep.
And you're like, yep, we showed you guys.
Yep. And so now we're working on other stores outside of Michigan, down in Florida,
Oh, awesome.
and hopefully continuing to expand. So very, very, very fun client, and really awesome success that we've seen so far.
Yeah. Love that. Good for you guys. So you mentioned personalization a little bit ago. Let's talk about it. How do you approach personalization and targeting in digital marketing?
So again, this is again a common mistake I think some businesses and clients make is that you don't have data you cannot personalize. And I think with digital marketing, personalization is vital to success of really any marketing strategy, whether it's digital or traditional or print. Like
Yeah.
personalization is key. It not only increases revenue, but it also decreases acquisition costs. So it's like, it's a no brainer. So you really got to have trustworthy, reliable data to do personalization, because the worst thing you could do is have personalization and it's like, you know, hi Samantha, so and so, like it's like I'm not Samantha, I'm Brittany, and
Yeah.
it's like just is like a strike on that
Yeah.
brand. So my motto has always been like collect as much data as you can. Let's clean it. Let's make sure that it's, there's no acronyms or misspellings. And then how can we utilize that data now, whether that is in, personalizing their website or their email experience or what have you. But I really do think that you got to gather data however you can, and that's why we at americaneagle.com can help with that too. But it really is important to personalize their experience. You got to keep up. A lot of folks are doing this, and it's kind of like big brother-ish when you have a website that is really great at personalizing. You search something on their website and then you see an ad for it on Facebook. Like
Yeah.
that's the way of the future, and it's here. So you got to have good data.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's shift gears to, the future. What emerging trends in digital marketing are you most excited about?
So I feel like, and everybody's talking about AI. And I think there's so many different pluses and minuses to AI.
Mhm.
But I think the way of the future with AI is like using it to like predict the future and having the ability to like really use like predictive analytics. It's like having a fortune teller really next to you. So I think that is a trend that we'll see, and we'll be able to look at like, okay, is this client or this customer, I should say, about to churn and leave and never purchase again? Like, what is their propensity to buy? And we're able to like look into the future and see, okay, this person hasn't bought something in however many days. We think they're about to churn. Predictive analytics tells us that the common churn, time frame is between here and here. Then we can hit them with any sort of messaging. So you're kind of like at the right place at the right time. So I think AI is something that we can definitely continue to tap in and expand. But I think being able to predict the future is kind of cool. And I geek out over it, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and
As you can tell.
yeah, I also think that's really fascinating, and especially if that's going to be or help you win back a customer too. I think that could be extremely helpful in many cases.
Yeah, and sometimes it works, sometimes it
Yeah.
doesn't, but again, you figure out timing and time frames and things like that. So I do think along with AI and data and having like this predictiveness to it, it's gonna be fun.
This is a little side question, but are there any ways in which you use AI in any sort of predictive analytics in your role right now, or kind of looking at, the different strategies to use?
Yeah, so I for AI for me, I feel like me personally, I use it as like additional team member. So like bouncing ideas off of an AI tool, or like, what do you think about this? Or I use it to like if I'm having writer's block, which happens all the time.
Yeah, same.
I'm not an English major. Yeah, I'm not an English major. I have, writer's block sometimes. So
Mhm.
I will be like, help me, like, what is a different word for this, or rephrase this on what it makes sense. So I think there's a lot more we could be doing with AI, but me personally right now it's like just something that I can bounce an idea off of, or does this make sense, or is there a different way of thinking of this? So not only using that and then my team members, um, but I think, that's the great thing at americaneagle.com. Like we've kind of leaned into AI and
Yeah.
how can we use it to benefit our clients and make our jobs easier and our lives easier, and provide more value, where some companies are like, nope, no AI. at all, which I think maybe they'll fall behind a little bit. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
it's
I'm excited about the future of AI.
yeah, me too. And it's hard obviously to predict, and obviously I don't want it to like take over, the human race, but I
Right?
think it is so helpful in so many ways and just efficiencies and like you said, just idea generation and brainstorming and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a bunch of different things you can use it for. So we'll see. We'll see what AI has in store for us.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to businesses looking to enhance their digital marketing efforts?
Well, visit
Yep.
americaneagle.com first and foremost.
We love the subtle plug. We love it
You
here.
have to put the plug in there. But I think any business again is like making sure we have goals and what are those goals. And then if you're struggling to meet those goals internally, it's really finding a trusted, valued partner, whether that's an agency or a consultant, but somebody that or something or some company or some team that again you work together as an extension of one another. I think is my piece of advice. Again, you got to take risks to be successful as well, but find somebody or find a partner that really cares and values and really wants you to succeed and hit your goals. Whether that's again an agency, a consultant, a team member, but I think that's important.
Yeah, I like that. And I like what you said in the beginning too of like it really is a partnership. And I think, that it helps people not get so worried about like relinquishing all control to somebody else or because I think that's a big fear of people when when they
Yep.
hire a digital marketing agency is like, giving the reins to someone and they can just do whatever they want, but it really is a partnership and I think that's very
Yeah,
important.
and that's why I think it's sometimes is one of the mistakes we make as an agency or potentially a digital marketing strategist is not getting to know the client, and not getting to know like what their needs and wants are. I think is something that hinders us. So, um, yeah, I think again, building that relationship, I think is key.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you continue to grow and develop your skills as a digital marketing professional?
So I think surrounding myself with like-minded people, I think is something you can continue to grow your skills. It's like asking, different points of view and I think is important. I also think listening to podcasts is
Like modern marketing messages?
right, right. I think reading articles, asking questions. Harvard Business Review has been a great source of like industry knowledge and trends for me. Radical Cantor,
Okay.
I think is a great resource as well. So it's just reading articles. LinkedIn is great for not only, seeing where, your professional network is what they're doing and what's trending. I think it's really important, but asking questions, listening to podcasts, webinars, subscribing to certain industry newsletters is something that I'll get my cup of coffee. I'll spend 15, 20 minutes looking through like Harvard Business Review email that just came through. And it kind of gets also juices flowing too for the
Yeah,
day.
absolutely. And there is no shortage of resources out there. So it's kind of just up to you to go out and find them and listen to them.
Yep. Yep. Taking initiative, I think too. Like some people are like, oh, I don't want to listen to a work podcast. I'm off of work. But again, I think if you want to continue to grow and develop, it's important to put in work outside of work too.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. So my very last question for you today is what advice would you give to someone looking to pursue a career in digital marketing?
I think my piece of advice is relationships are key. I think networking is really important. As uncomfortable as it may be, networking I think is something that opens up a lot of opportunities. It gives you a chance to learn something new and stay on top of trends, but also relationships are key. And my biggest piece of advice is don't burn bridges at all. You never know when you have to cross that bridge again. If you leave a company, leave it in good graces and a positive, exit review and things like that is don't burn bridges. Build great relationships because you never know like when you're going to be able to rely on those relationships, whether it's through layoffs or COVID or what have you.
Yeah.
I think it's important to just build great relationships and don't burn bridges.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was all of the questions I had for you today. Thank you so much, Brittany. I had a great time talking with you and learning all about your
It's
career,
fun.
and you had some really great insights to share.
Perfect. Thanks for having me all the way in Virginia too.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Modern Marketing Messages. Check out below for more information about this episode and AmericanEagle.com's digital marketing services. This podcast is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios. I'm Taylor Karg, and we'll be back with another Modern Marketing Message.